So how well do you think you know the guys here at Sanctuary, all the different podcasters that you listen to from week to week? Ask you some questions about things that you may assume to be true, and we're going to answer that today on 45 RPM. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Scott, and this is 45 RPM. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I have lots of questions. I put up a couple of posts on a couple of different places asking people to send in things that they assume to be the case or they assume to be true about Pastor Bob, about myself, and all the other podcasters here at Sanctuary. And it was interesting, some of the responses that I got, and I'm going to put some of those to rest. Now, I do have one thing. I have notes this time. I never use notes, but I couldn't remember all of your questions, and I've got them written down, so when you see me reading, you'll know what's going on. And at the end of this podcast, I'm going to share with you, I went to each one of our podcasters and asked them to tell something about themselves that very few people know. And they did that. So there won't be a whole lot of editing here because I'm just going to kind of go with it, and it's going to be conversational. I hope you enjoy that. If you have anything else that you would like to ask or know about, you can put a comment down below and we'll address that as well. I'm going to hit the ground running with David. He sent in just a statement that wanted to know when we were going to do a group man bun photo. The man bun in last week's podcast that I wore got lots of attention. It almost got big enough that I gave it its own Facebook page, but I didn't. But the man bun thing, I think it'd be better if we had a group pony or pigtail photo. I think that'd be kind of cool. That just brings me to our next one. Robert asked, he said, I assume that long hair is a metal thing. And also, do you have a comb over? Long hair being a metal thing, I don't know. I guess it is, kind of. There are a lot of guys in the metal scene that have lots of hair. But one thing I would like to say is, no, I do not have a comb over. It's my real hair. It's not a comb over. Okay, so you got that. Charles says, I assume you guys will be podcasting forever. Gosh, you know, I love what I do. I love getting to podcast, as do all of the guys that do it. It's a labor of love for us. It's something we do because we want to. And, you know, I started podcasting hoping that one day when I have children, or great-grandchildren, grandchildren, that they would be able to kind of see what their granddaddy was like when he was younger or when he was here, you know. It would be interesting for them to be able to see it one day and be able to hear words from the grandfather. Maybe even after we're gone, other people will just repost our stuff. I don't know, but my hope is that I can podcast as long as Jesus wants me to do that, and as long as I'm doing that, that I'm okay, right? Keith says, he sent a long post, and then one of the things that he mentioned is that he had the Sanctuary Praise record back from the day. You guys remember that one. And he was kind of disappointed when he listened to Sanctuary Praise that it wasn't metal praise. It was praise, you know. And he said, but he learned later in his life that he enjoyed it. It was okay. It still wasn't what he was looking for musically, stylistically, but he enjoyed that. And I think that is one assumption that a lot of people make about Sanctuary, is that all we listen to, all we do, as far as going down the road and having the radio on, is metal. And that's not necessarily the case. We love the metal community. The metal community is our passion, our goal. But we listen to all kinds of music, praise music. Here recently I've been listening to a little, don't tell Pastor Bob, but I've been listening to a little bit of Johnny Cash and Charlie Daniels, and that's kind of in the country genre. So don't tell him that, though. There's a couple of things I'm going to reveal that we don't want to tell Pastor Bob. But Matt says, I assume that Don Wade is a good bit smaller than Chris and Scott. The problem here is not what you assumed. You know what assuming does, right? It's not that he's smaller than Chris and I. It's that Chris and I are so much bigger. We're just big, and we make a lot of people look small. I remember going to a Sanctuary conference 2 years ago, and one of the guys walking up, and he's like, golly, and he's looking at Chris, and he's looking at me, he's like, you guys are big. Yeah, thanks. I'm working on it, by the way. All right, let's keep going. Tomas says, I assume that all of you guys are close friends. Actually, we are. We are a close-knit group. Now, we're located all over the country, right? Even though we're not close in proximity, we are very close. We speak nearly every day. Some of us talk more than others. Some of us, like me, talk so much that others don't have a chance to talk very much. And that's one of the things I'm working on right now, is trying to tone down my talkativeness. Yeah. But yes, we are very close. You assume correctly, and that is true. Pat says, I assume that you've all worked together for years, or at least you've known each other for a long, long time. In most cases, that is the case. Now, it's interesting because, like Don Waite moved to California to be a part of Sanctuary back when Sanctuary was in California. Chris was a pastor with Sanctuary in California. Pastor Bob knew those guys. Jamie, it's interesting because Jamie, he just became part of the Sanctuary ministry team because he was involved in it so much, right? So yeah, now me in my case, I was aware of Sanctuary, as many of you have been, for years and years, but it was after Pastor Bob saw some of my podcasts that I was doing outside of Sanctuary that he spoke with me, and he said that God was leading him to invite me to be a part of that. And following God's leadership, he got me involved, and I'm so thankful that he did. So I did not know anyone. When Pastor Bob spoke with me and asked me to come on board, it was an absolute miracle of God that took place. And so the answer to that one is yes and no. Some of the folks have known each other for years. Some of the folks not so much. All right. Let's see. Stephen says, I assume that you all receive benefits for working for Sanctuary, and you've all worked for churches. Well, I want to say that Sanctuary there are benefits, yes. The benefits are you guys. You guys are the benefits, okay? We don't get paid to do what we do. The benefits that we receive are you guys, being able to talk with you and being able to say that we're your friends and get to know you, and the fact that God lets us be a part of what's going on with this ministry. That's the benefits that we have. Not all of us have worked for churches. Some of us have. Pastor Bob, of course, worked in Sanctuary. He never received a paycheck from Sanctuary, and he still doesn't. I worked in a church for 20-something years, and that was my living for 20-something years, and I came out of that, and since then, no, I don't get paid by any church to do what I do with Sanctuary. Chris was a pastor of a church. He's not a pastor anymore. Now Chris works in Denver and in a high-rise. Don is he's a graphic designer. We all have lives outside of Sanctuary and the church, and we're thankful. Now, Pastor Bob 2.0, Pastor Bob Adams, is a current pastor, and his podcast deals with that, being a pastor and what it's like to be on the pulpit side of things. And so he is a part of that, and he is absolutely taking care of his family and all is supported by his church, and as it should be. So yeah, I mean, you see, Jamie has his own small business, so we all have things that are going on that we have to do in order to be able to do what we do with Sanctuary. It's not something that affords us anything, at least at this point it doesn't, and that's okay. It's okay. We do it because we love it. Ronald says something that I thought was interesting. He said, I assume that you all have hobbies, and I'm assuming that it probably deals with music. Well, not so much. Yeah, of course, I think we all love music, but it's not necessarily a hobby, so to speak. I would say that I want you to know that Pastor Bob, when I asked him what his hobbies are, he told me that it was ballet dancing, and but also feeding ducks and geese. He's got a beautiful yard that's on a lake, and ducks and geese come up, and he likes to do that. He's also a fan of Star Trek, and he's an Apple Mac geek, and he loves to send us memes. Every day we get memes from Pastor Bob. PB2, Pastor Bob Adams, he likes bicycling, he likes camping and fishing. Jamie is a gourmet chef. This guy can cook. You would not believe this guy is a fantastic cook, and very few people know that. Andreas Loves playing in a metal band, of course, that deals with music. He was in the very first Christian metal band ever to come out of the metal scene in Denmark, the Christian metal scene in Denmark. And that band was called Barricades. And he also loves hanging out with his wife and son, and he loves cuddling up with reptiles. Go figure, Andreas. We all love Andreas. Don likes hiking, camping, collecting baseball caps and coins. He likes to read and study. Chris, he really likes to read. That is a reader and a studier. And I also know that he loves going to the movies with his family, his wife, and that's awesome. Personally, myself, I'm a fan of roller coasters. I love collecting. I'm kind of a hoarder. I like to collect things like Disney trading pins. I like to do that. I like to collect band shirts. I like to collect tattoos, you know. Yeah, I'm somewhat of a Disney geek. That's one of the things that people don't really know about me, but I like that, and I like going to amusement parks and riding rides. I just think that's a lot of fun. Kevin says, I assume that Scott, Jamie, Andreas, and Bob were all tattooed before their conversion experience. Actually, no. I was saved as a child, 7 years old. My tattoos that I have, which you know, I've got an itch right here. You know, something's got to give right there. But the tattoos that we got are something we have because we like them. The biblical passage that people like to throw at us about tattoos, if they do that, they're taking it out of context. It's something that we do because we like it, and it wasn't. I don't think any of us have our tattoos from before we were saved. Yeah, so that's something that's false. And finally, I want to share with you, and this is an interesting thing, and I know this podcast is going long, but this is interesting. This is something that no one knows about each one of us. I ask all of our guys to share with us something that no one knows about them. So I'm just going to go down this list and share this with you, and hopefully you'll get a kick out of it. Pastor Bob says that he has a mug and a church collection, and it's massive. I have been in Pastor Bob's house. He's got a collection of small churches, and it's on a shelf that goes around the top of his room. And it is incredible. And his mug collection, you ought to see these mugs. When he goes somewhere, he gets a mug. So he's got mugs from everywhere, and he sends us mugs, and he'll say, you know, and he'll just make a mug, and he'll give me a mug. I have to put a picture. Check out this picture I'll put up here of a mug that he gave me of myself. Just what I needed. He's a mug guy. All right, let's see. Bob Adams. Here's something nobody knows about him. In 1993, Bob Adams, he sang for NASCAR in their chapel service. There you go. Jamie says, and I thought this was Jamie's an interesting guy, isn't he? He says, I hate it when the sun comes up. I like stormy, rainy, windy days. The sun makes me angry. I like stormy days too. It's good for taking a nap, right? Andreas. I did not know this about Andreas. He has he's ran 9 full marathons, and one of them was a 50K ultra marathon. Wow. Don was in an 80s Christian metal band called Guardian Angel, and I've heard it, and it was fantastic. Way to go, Don. Chris had a hard time coming up. Chris is such an open book, right? So I'm going to share what I know about Chris, and I've told him I was going to do this, and he gave me permission. He drives like a bat out of Hades. You would think he's from Southern California. Actually, he is. And he drives like he is. It doesn't matter where he's at, in our country, in the woods, in the city. It doesn't matter. If he's driving, you better hold on. Seriously. Yeah, that's him. And then myself, this is something I've never shared at all for fear of judgment from you guys. I did guest vocals one time on a Southern Gospel CD. I did, and it's one that was sold, and I did very well. And yeah, I was also part of a Southern Gospel quartet. Yeah, so there you go. Look, here's what it all comes down to. Guys, we're just like you. there's nothing different about us and you and anyone else that is just honestly out there doing our best to try to seek God and do what He wants us to do. You know, we all have our grills that we fire up on the weekends with the family. We all have animals that I have to try to get to shut up long enough for me to do my podcast. We're all just normal, regular people. You know, that's one reason why I didn't get all fancied up for this podcast. I wanted you to see this is kind of what I look like on just a normal, regular day. You know, Ramones, right? We are who we are, and we're struggling just like you struggle, and we're chasing after God's will for our life just like you are. And thankfully, God has given us the ability, God has given us the opportunity to serve you. We are here to serve you. We are here to wash your feet. We are here to be a part of your life and to let you guys know that we love you. Jesus loves you. He died on a cross for you and for us, and we're all in this journey together, and we want you to know that as we go through this life, that you are not alone. We're not alone, and you know, just when I thought I had no friends anymore, God gave me this group of people, and they're closer than my friends now. They're my brothers, and I'm so thankful for them, and we are that to you. We're that to you. Love you. God bless you. I know it's been long, but it's been fun.